Hello my friends and welcome. Here is a story about the Irish female resistance fighters during the Second World War. Irish women figure prominently, making up over 50% of the Irish resistance contingent. Many resistance groups dedicated themselves to helping Allied servicemen evade capture. The first of these evasion networks sprang up in 1940, and by 1944 a series of elaborate networks had been established across France. One of the largest evasion groups was known as Musée de la Homme. Catherine Ann Mccarthy, also known as Sister Marie Laurence, was one of the group's earliest members. She was an Irish nursing sister from Cork. She had served previously as a nurse during the First World War, and in 1940 she was serving as a nurse in the civilian hospital in Bethune. During the fighting that raged across France in the summer of 1940, she found herself with several wounded British and French soldiers in her care. As these men recovered, she smuggled them out of the hospital, and some of her earliest evaders made it through the lines to the beachhead at Dunkirk. She later passed her patients on to one of the fledgling local resistance groups, and it was through this activity that she became involved with the wider work of the Musée de la Homme movement. She was arrested by the Nazis in June 1941. At her trial she was condemned to death on the testimony of an informer. This sentence was commuted to deportation. During the next 4 years she was sent to various camps before being sent to the women's concentration camp at Ravensbrück. In December 1944, where she nearly starved to death, contracted typhus, and was 4 times designated for the crematorium by the huntsman, who selected women unfit for hard labor. Miraculously she survived and was evacuated by the Red Cross in April 1944. She had helped 120 servicemen escape from German-occupied France. Mourinho Sullivan parachuted into occupied France in 1944, working for the British government's Special Operations Executive, or SOE, with the French resistance. In the May of that year, and a few short weeks before D-Day, she was stopped by German soldiers at a checkpoint near Limoges in France. In the heart-stopping minutes that followed she contrived to chat to each soldier alone as they checked her papers. She flirted outrageously, and as she cycled away, both Germans believe that they have secured a date for that evening. According to her papers, this woman is a French citizen. In reality, the suitcase on her bicycle holds a wireless set. Only the soldiers know why they didn't want to search it. She narrowly escaped arrest, torture, and death several times, using her guile and cunning, as with these soldiers at the German checkpoint. Those who served in the Special Operations Executive were awarded both British and French medals. Patricia Sullivan received both the Cross de Guerre and the MBE. 70 years after they fought, spied, sabotaged and in some cases, died for France, 50 Irish men and women, who worked for the French resistance, were officially recognized for the first time, at a subdued but moving ceremony in the Irish College in Paris in October 2014. Some 750 Irish people lived in France when the Second World War started. The plaque in the courtyard of the Irish College is dedicated to Irish men and women who served the cause of the liberation of France. These women made a moral choice. They could have waved their Free State passports, mirrored the Irish government's stance and said, "I'm not involved. I'm neutral." The prevailing sentiment, expressed by Geraldine Byrne-Nasson, Ireland's ambassador to Paris, was one of very great humility in the face of such courage. At least one man in the audience cried as the names of the 50 resistors, 3 of whom were killed by the Nazis, were read out. Joe Jewson, 74, remembers Catherine McCarthy, or Auntie Katie as she was known. Retired history teacher, Ms. Jewson, regrets not having recognized earlier the magnitude of Catherine's achievement and suffering. "When I was a history student at the University of London," she said, "I told her I had visited Berlin, and she recalled walking barefoot through Berlin when she was shifted from one camp to another. more than half of the 50 Irish people who joined the resistance were women, compared to fewer than 10% in the resistance as a whole. As an Irish woman, I am particularly struck by the proportion of women among the Irish members of the resistance. There can be no surprise at the bravery of those women, following in the greatest traditions of Mccarthy. I revere them today as outstanding examples of independent-minded, intelligent women who went into action and risked everything for what was right. Irish women resistors were well ahead of their time, and of what their society expected of them, of what Ireland allowed of them. They did not only rock the cradle, they rocked the system. John Morgan, a lawyer from Dublin, and a trustee of the Escape Lines Memorial Society, campaigned with David Murphy for recognition of Irish resistors. 5 years ago, on a hike through the 1940s Pyrenees escape route, he met Tondre Dumont, a French woman, who wept when she told Morgan about her Irish friend Catherine Crean, who died at Ravensbrück. All we know about Catherine is that she was living in Belgium during the war. She was involved in assisting the Ally soldiers, hiding and securing supplies for them. She was arrested by the Nazis and died in Ravensbrück concentration camp for women, shortly after the camp was liberated in 1945. Very little is known of her life in Ireland before the war. Catherine is remembered in Andre's book, published in 2018. Catherine and Nadine were friends and met through their work on the escape line. Nadine describes the final moments they spent together in Ravensbrück concentration camp shortly before Catherine died. Anne Duchesne was an Irish woman living in Belgium. Her Belgian-Irish family sheltered Scottish soldiers. Anne was to pay a huge sacrifice through the loss of her 2 children, a daughter named Flory, who died in Bergen, in the notorious Belsen concentration camp, in April 1945, and a son Leopold, who was released from a Nazi prison at the end of the war, but died soon after. Margaret Kelly, born in 1910, was a dancer from Ireland and the founder and impresario of the world-famous Bluebell Girls dancing troupe. During the war, Margaret regularly risked her own life to save her husband and business partner, Marcel Bovacy, whom she married in 1939 and whom she hid from the Nazis as he was Jewish. She passed away peacefully in 2004. Another woman hiding people from the Nazis was Margaret Carney Taylor, who was born in the UK of an Irish family. She lived in Paris and then Madrid, where she was involved in escape line resistance work, sheltering people in Madrid who had fled Nazi-occupied France, including many Jewish people. These stories of courage, resourcefulness, selflessness and self-sacrifice remind us of qualities we lack today. Each story is more inspiring than the last. Politically, it's understandable that the French, and foreigners among them, joined the fight against Nazism. What impresses me most is the personal and emotional resonance the period still has for people, 77 years later. And that, my friends, was another little-known story from Ireland's twisted history. Thank you for watching, and goodbye for now.